Why your fear of being alone is fear of yourself. You reach for your phone the moment you wake up. You fill every silence with music, podcasts, or meaningless scrolling. You surround yourself with people even when you don't particularly enjoy their company. You'll do anything, absolutely anything, to avoid being alone with your thoughts. And you tell yourself it's because you're social. After all, you love connection, because solitude is depressing. But that's not the real reason, and deep down, you know it. The truth you don't want to face is this. You're not afraid of being alone. You're terrified of meeting yourself. Think about the last time you sat in complete silence for more than 5 minutes. No phone, no TV, no music, no distractions. Just you and your mind. How long did it take before you felt uncomfortable? How quickly did you reach for something, anything, to fill that space? Most people can't handle more than a few minutes because solitude forces them into a confrontation they've been avoiding their entire adult life. When all the noise stops, when all the distractions fade away, you're left face to face with the person you've been running from, yourself. But why is this so terrifying? Why do we treat our own company like it's poison? The answer lies in what happens when we're truly alone. All those thoughts we've been pushing down start to surface. All those feelings we've been numbing begin to emerge. All those questions we've been avoiding demand answers. When you're alone, really alone, your mind starts to wander into territories you'd rather not explore. You begin to question the choices you've made, the life you're living, and the person you've become. You start to feel emotions you've been suppressing: sadness, anger, disappointment, regret. You hear that inner voice that's been trying to get your attention, the one that's been whispering truths you don't want to acknowledge. This is why you keep yourself constantly busy, constantly stimulated, constantly surrounded. Because busyness is the perfect anesthetic. It numbs you to the uncomfortable realities of your existence. It gives you the illusion that you're living fully when you're just avoiding living authentically. The psychological mechanism behind this avoidance is quite sophisticated. Your brain has learned that certain thoughts and feelings are painful, so it seeks constant external stimulation to prevent you from accessing them. It's like having a wound that you keep covering with bandages instead of cleaning and healing. But here's what's happening when you avoid solitude. You're essentially abandoning yourself. You're telling your inner world that it's not worth your time, that it's not safe to explore, that it's better to stay on the surface than to dive deep. You're choosing the comfort of distraction over the growth that comes from self-confrontation. And society supports this avoidance. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness, that treats constant productivity as a virtue, that makes you feel guilty for sitting still. We're told that being alone means being lonely, that solitude is something to be cured rather than embraced. But what are you avoiding when you run from solitude? You're avoiding the parts of yourself that don't fit the image you've created. You're avoiding the dreams you've given up on, the parts of your personality you've suppressed, the authentic desires you've buried under what you think you're supposed to want. You're avoiding the grief of paths not taken, the anger about compromises you've made, the sadness about relationships that didn't work out the way you hoped. You're avoiding the fear about your future, the uncertainty about your choices, the doubt about whether you're living the life you want. Most painfully, you're avoiding the recognition that you might not know yourself as well as you think you do. When you're constantly distracted, you can maintain the illusion that you're in control, that you understand yourself, that you're living intentionally. But solitude reveals the gaps in your self-knowledge, the contradictions in your beliefs, the distance between who you think you are and who you are. This avoidance comes at a tremendous cost. When you're afraid of your own company, you become dependent on external validation, external stimulation, and external meaning. You lose touch with your intuition, your authentic desires, and your genuine emotions. You start living life on autopilot, reacting to circumstances rather than creating from your authentic self. Your relationships suffer because you're bringing an incomplete version of yourself to them. How can you truly connect with others when you're not even connected to yourself? How can you offer genuine intimacy when you're uncomfortable with your inner world? Your decision-making becomes compromised because you're making choices based on what will keep you distracted rather than what will fulfill you. You might stay in jobs that drain you, relationships that don't serve you, or lifestyles that feel empty, simply because changing would require periods of solitude to figure out what you want. But here's something that might surprise you. The very thing you're running from is the key to everything you're seeking. That inner world you're avoiding contains your creativity, your wisdom, your authentic power. Those uncomfortable emotions you're numbing are guidance systems trying to point you toward a more fulfilling life. The thoughts that arise in solitude aren't your enemies. They're messengers. They're trying to tell you something important about your life, your choices, your direction. When you constantly avoid them, you're essentially hanging up on the most important phone call you'll ever receive. Learning to be comfortable alone with yourself is one of the most radical acts of self-love you can perform. It's saying that your inner world matters, that your thoughts and feelings deserve attention, that you're worth spending time with. But how do you start when the fear feels overwhelming? Begin small. Set aside 5 minutes a day to sit in silence. No agenda, no meditation technique, no goal other than being present with whatever arises. Notice what comes up. Notice the urge to distract yourself. Notice the discomfort, but don't immediately run from it. As you build this tolerance for solitude, you'll start to discover something remarkable. That person you were afraid to meet, yourself, is quite interesting. You have thoughts you've never fully explored, feelings you've never completely processed, and dreams you've never given space to breathe. You'll find that your inner world isn't the chaotic, dangerous place you imagined. Yes, there's pain there, but there's also wisdom. Yes, there's uncertainty, but there's also possibility. Yes, there's sadness, but there's also joy that you've been too distracted to feel. The transformation that happens when you stop running from yourself is profound. You develop a kind of inner stability that doesn't depend on external circumstances. You become your own best company. You start making decisions from a place of genuine self-knowledge rather than fear or social pressure. Your relationships improve because you're no longer desperately seeking in others what you're unwilling to give yourself: attention, understanding, and acceptance. You become more selective about how you spend your time because you've developed a clearer sense of what truly matters to you. Most importantly, you start living from the inside out rather than the outside in. Instead of constantly reacting to external stimuli, you begin creating from your authentic self. Instead of filling your life with noise to avoid emptiness, you discover that what you thought was emptiness was actually spaciousness, room for your real life to emerge. The fear of being alone isn't really about loneliness at all. It's about the courage required to face yourself honestly, to sit with your truth, to take responsibility for your life. It's about the vulnerability of admitting that you might not have all the answers, that you're still growing, that you're still becoming. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop running from yourself, you stop feeling truly alone. When you can be comfortable with your own company, when you can trust your own inner guidance, when you can face your own truth, you develop a relationship with yourself that no external circumstance can threaten. You realize that you've been carrying everything you need inside you all along: the wisdom, the strength, the love, the answers. They were never outside you. They were just waiting for you to stop running long enough to discover them. The question isn't whether you can handle being alone. The question is whether you're brave enough to finally meet yourself. And sometimes, that can be pretty intimidating.